Welcome to the Tradies in Business podcast. Join your host, Nicole Cox, as she dives into the real stories, tips, secrets, and stuff-ups from guests both inside and outside the trade world. Nick is here to help you break free from the grind, reduce money stress, and build a trade business that truly works for you. So grab a brew, put your phone on silent, and get ready to be inspired.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Tradies in Business podcast for another fantastic guest. I have met some amazing people in the last 3 months. I've had some amazing opportunities handed to me to speak to some very like-minded business owners, which makes me quite excited for some of the guests we have on our books, including today's guest, Mick. Mick Scotney is here today to join me to talk about, doing business differently, growing teams, understanding what it takes to lead your teams and have a different result than you perhaps have had before, because it most definitely is a frustration I hear about frequently. Mick, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're most welcome, and thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to share my story with your listeners.
It's an absolute pleasure. Mick, tell me about your journey. We don't arrive at our current destination without a journey behind us. What can you tell us about how you came to be doing what you do today?
So I grew up in northwest Queensland in a country town called Mount Isa, a mining city, and went to school, got an apprenticeship as an electrician, and pretty quickly realised it was a great background, and I had a couple of key strengths. I got along with people really well, and I quickly moved into leadership positions. I became a supervisor at 22 years old, put in charge of a group of people, and I had no idea what I was doing. Like most of us got promoted, but determined to learn and grow. I learned a lot of hard lessons. And a few years later, I started with my business partner at the time. We started our own contractor business, and we quickly grew that over the first few years. We quickly grew that. And before we realized, I was in charge of a group of 20 people. We built that business up to sort of $5-6 million mark. And I realized it was at that moment, I'd just had a young baby. My daughter was, maybe 10 months old. And I'm sitting there on the bed, laying with her on a Saturday morning, stressed about all the things I had to do. People there, someone was working, were they going to be at this job? Did they turn up on time? A million things going through my head. And I thought, you know what? How does someone do it and run a business with like 50 people? It can't be this hard, surely. Like this can't be normal. Because it was hard, right? Really, really hard. So I decided at that moment I was going to start to learn and grow because there had to be a better way to do things. So I did research, I did some leadership coaching, and I went to a government-funded leadership program, which was incredible. And then I went to university and did an MBA because I thought that's what all the best business people were doing. And along the way, I learned that there's a couple of key things. And one of them was if we get our people right, it makes things a stack easier. So much easier. And there's another couple of core components. We've got to have systems and processes and understand our finances and a few other pieces. Most of us are already pretty good at our job, our technical trade, whatever it is, builder, electrician. For me, I was a pretty good electrician. But it was the people, and I realized I had a bit of a knack for that, and I fell in love with leadership and people. So over the next 4 or 5 years, I was getting coached and doing a whole bunch of stuff, and I realized that that's actually where my passion was. So 4 years ago, I decided to exit our business, and we'd grown that business from 2 of us, me and my business partner, up to, I think it was 65 employees when I left, but we'd up as high as 80. We went up and down for projects, but, we were up to 15 million revenue every year. So pretty decent sized business. And I realized that my passion, I'd fallen out of love with the business part of that, or what we did. So I decided to exit that and help businesses with their people, because I realized that if we get that right, it makes life a whole lot easier. 90% of our headaches come from our people. So that's where I got to where I am. And so for the last 4 years, I've been doing this full time. I started Awaken Business almost exactly 4 years ago. And have a look back since, and I love the impact that it has, and I love to see the transformation on business owners' face when they start to build a team that leads, and how much more space and capacity and how much more enjoyable business is when we take away some of those pain points.
It is supposed to be enjoyable, Mick, and yet consistently it's not. And I agree. People have so much to do with why it is so overwhelming, frustrating, disappointing. And we have moments of happiness, but there don't seem to be too many of those. So I love your passion. I love the way you've come to be doing what you're doing. So thinking about what you've done, you've taken a business from 2 people to 80 people. What surprised you the most about leading and growing a team? And what do you wish you knew earlier?
So what surprised me the most, I think, was that when I gave people the space to step up, they did. One of the big fears and doubts that I had in that growing process was, oh, look, they can't. I better just, mollycoddle them and hold their hand, and I don't want them to stuff it up. But when I actually got my hands and stepped out of the road and let them actually have some space to do the job well, 99% of the time they surprised the hell out of me and did a better job than I was expecting. So and that sort of helped me understand that the potential of our people is limitless, right? And that can become, and that in the end became a strength of ours because we'd developed a bench of leaders, a capacity of leaders. So someone would leave Mount Isa as a transient town. People come for 3 to 4, 5 years and then they go. But when someone would leave, a key person, there was always someone to replace them because I'd created this system where everyone had space to step up and perform, and there's a support network. So I think that part was really, really amazing. And the thing I wish I'd learned earlier is how to manage my time.
Oh, that's a cracker.
Oh, mate. For the longest time, I avoided having structure and systems and around how I manage my time and being disciplined around things because I didn't like the feeling of control. But what I realized is if I actually get control of my time, I have more space and capacity to. And it was probably about 10 years into my business journey where I started to like use calendars and start to use some of the tools to manage my time. And I thought to myself, why the hell haven't I been doing this for years? And over a period of a couple of years, I started to get good at that, and that's been a game changer.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that discipline equals freedom. I think, the sentence in itself doesn't make any sense until you actually start to practice discipline in your life, particularly in your business life.
Yeah.
And it creates the freedom of that space, the time, the enjoyment comes back. It
Yeah.
really does make a big shift. And then when you carry that over into your personal life, it's amazing the physical results, the emotional and mental results you can have that all stem back to discipline.
Yeah. It's such a key piece, right? The discipline is really, really important, and I think it applies in more places than one. I've always grown up playing sports, rugby, footy, rugby league, and you need discipline in those areas, but wasn't until I became disciplined across multiple areas of my life that I started to get more time, more freedom, more happiness, more lots of things. Health was improved, finances improved, all the way across the board because you start to implement that discipline across your life rather than just in one aspect.
Mm. We could almost end the podcast right now. I'm not going to, Mick, but we almost could because I don't think there is a more impactful statement than that. I think when I see people really struggling and they first come into my program, I'm sure it's a bit the same with you and your clients.
Yeah.
It's nearly always the beginning of discipline that creates that change. And of course, as they experience the early freedom of some of those changes, it expands out into other areas of their lives. And I think the problem with the word discipline is it kind of feels restrictive. But
Yeah.
it's not. It actually does the complete opposite when you use it well as a tool in your life. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. And you're right. When clients come into my world, we create that discipline and that space around them as a leader. And almost immediately, things feel a whole lot easier in their business because they've changed the way they look at their time, their requirements, their delegation, all the things that happen around them, right? And it's just incredible that change in those first 90 days that I see. It's my favorite part of working with a new client. Just see this massive change from where they were to this, all of a sudden they feel like they're in charge of a whole different business.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I agree. Okay. What's the biggest mistake you see trade business owners make when they start hiring a team, right back in the beginning?
Yeah. Yep. Uh, when they first start, I think they work with well intentions and they get someone who's like good skill level, but they may not necessarily be the right values fit because we don't really understand what that means. And I like to talk to people about it when I work with early or when I chat to people who are early in business is like, are they a good bloke? And insert woman, whatever, but are they a good person? Do they values align? Because I think they don't see the importance of that and how that impacts because they're out there representing our brand. Um, so I often see that's a big mistake is they hire someone who's good at the job and then they find out and they have problems with them. Um, and that's probably the biggest mistake with hiring, I think. And I think it's so important that we get that right at the start because then that sets the tone for who we have in our business as we grow.
Mm. Yep, couldn't agree more. So, many tradies start their business because they're good at the tools or they're good at what they do on the tools.
Yeah.
But leadership is a completely different skill set. And
Yeah.
I find interesting parallels between business owners that have played in group sports and then had a natural progression. They might have started their career at McDonald's, for example. We've got a great tradie. He's kicking ass. He's doing amazing things in his business and with his leadership. And he started in McDonald's. So it was kind of like that a career transition and understanding and learning leadership through it being demonstrated. But that different skill set can be quite overwhelming and challenging for trade business owners. Where do you believe somebody should begin when they realize that, they've hit a ceiling with their knowledge or their understanding about leadership and how that's showing up in their business?
I think there's the very first step that I like to talk to any leader that's sort of come to that realization. And I think the very first piece is awareness. They have to become aware of like, oh my, there's a gap here. And the minute they become aware, almost instantly I see changes because for most of us, when we see something wrong or broken or not working, we want to fix it. But it's not until we acknowledge that there's a gap that we almost immediately we start to work, our brain starts to work with us to solve the problem, even though we haven't learnt anything yet. We see immediate results. That shift from being a great tradesman to being a great leader is the hardest shift to make. And it's the thing that I spend the most time on with my newer leaders. And there's a distinguishing belief. Your first priority is helping the team do everything they need and then filling the rest of your time with billable work, not fitting in all the supervisory leadership stuff around your billable work. This must be done first, then that. And it's that thought process and that belief system that I think makes the biggest change that I see in all of the leaders I work with. And whether you're promoting someone into a supervisor and I'm working with their supervisor team, teaching them that's where I start and spend my time, or whether it's a business owner that's at 7 or 8 people and we're helping them go bigger, that's the thing, right? Because at the moment they're running around trying to fill their day with billable hours and then work till 7 or 8 o'clock at night doing all the things they need to as a leader, whereas they've got to flip the way they think about that. And the minute they do that, it completely changes from the team's perspective because they are now working for a leader who's organized, who's got his finger on the pulse instead of scrambling, right?
Yeah.
You immediately get out of being a firefighter and start to be working proactively towards what we need to as a business. It's an incredible shift. And I think that's the key thing you've got to grasp. And once you do that, the skills start to come. But if we haven't grasped that, it's hard to learn the skills because we haven't sort of made that shift that this is where I need to be.
Comes back to discipline, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. It's funny how everything's so interlinked there when you talk about it, but that belief, I think, is the biggest shift that needs to be made for any progress.
Yep, totally agree. You talk a bit about the difference between an operator and a leader. Can you unpack that for us and how that shift in mindset really can show up on the day-to-day?
Yeah, so an operator is busy doing all the things, right? And it ties into what I just said before, right? So I'll use an example. One of my clients, Mark, when he started with me, he would be running around answering the phones, doing all of the things, and everything would get done, but that's how an operator would do it. They would do all of the stuff, no matter what it is. They're just getting all the things, solving all the problems, fixing all the things, delegating, sending guys to jobs, whatever, but he's just doing all the stuff. Whereas a leader would take an hour at the start of the day, plan out their day, plan out what everyone's got to do, then allocate it, then go spend some time on the tools, then maybe go and check in on some people or then schedule some admin time. Like a leader is proactive about the things they've got to get done, whereas an operator is just doing all the things that come up. Oh, there's a flashing light over there. Let's fix the flashing light. Rather than go, okay, well, that's going to need fixing this afternoon. I'll do this. And having that structure and around getting our priorities done first. That's the biggest difference. And I think when it comes to mindset, it's what is most important right now. And most important is to make sure my team have everything they need to win. Then, and only then, is it go do the things. And it's that mindset that makes the biggest difference for people to shift from being an operator to a leader or a business owner. And that same thing applies if you're an employee as a supervisor or an owner of 4 or 5 people that's going into like become leading a group of people rather than just working on the tools.
Yep. Again, couldn't agree more. I knew this conversation was going to go well. Okay, so thinking back on your journey, Mike, if you think about what leadership looked like to you when the business was small, and then how that needed to evolve or change as your team grew.
Mm. Yeah, what a great point. So for me, we went through all of the stages all the way up to, quite a big business. So, when we first started, there was 6 or 7 tradesmen and myself when we sort of started to put some structure in place. Um, and then leadership looked like for me being the guy that could come and solve problems for them. It also looked like being the interface to the client. So they would ring me and I'd be like, "Hey, yeah, we need to do this." Okay, I'd go and help them on the job and show them what to do, or they couldn't fix something and I'd put them in the right direction or whatever it was, or they couldn't get access to something and I'd organize another job for them. So it looked like solving problems, coordination and logistics, like what work are we doing when, who's going to what house or what address or what business to do what work. And then a little bit of like customer interface, like quoting jobs and going to visit the customer to build up more work, right? That were the 3 things that leadership looked like for me when I first started. And then add on to that as we grew, it was about billables and finance, about invoicing and about making sure the jobs were processed so that we could charge out the right amount. Um, and then as it grew, then it become more about like big picture, like quoting bigger jobs, having a forecasting of what work we've got coming up rather than like scheduling the work for tomorrow or the next day. It was like, what are we doing for the next month? So at the start, it was really about like, what are we doing in the next few days and next week and making sure everyone was on a job. But also at that stage, I'd still had my own jobs every day. So practically that looked like I would come in an hour before everyone else. I would allocate piles of jobs for everyone. And then what would happen from there is I'd take my pile of jobs and go do jobs. And in between that, I'd run to other places and answer calls all day. And that's what my life looked like, for the first 5 years. That's how I ran it with 20 people. And it was crazy that, I was at capacity. But then as I realized and I started to put structure in, we allocated a couple of supervisors and gave them sections of the business to look after to do that logistics and daily planning. And what I did is I showed them what I did that worked. And then it was in that moment, it was actually partway through my university course, I did organizational design as a subject. And I realized, I had the structure wrong and I actually allocated areas of responsibility rather than just a bunch of jobs, right? Oh, you look after this type of work and you look after that type of work. And when they did that, they started to make it their own and really, really departments started to shine, gave them space and ownership. Because I think that's really important as a leader that you have ownership of what you're in charge of rather than just becoming a coordinator or a, administrator as such of that section. So when I realized I made that shift up into being responsible for a group of leaders.
Yep.
And I giving them ownership of the structure and letting them succeed in that space and having ownership of their team and then being able to, what happened was I moved more into HR stuff and supported them to manage the day to day and deal with general HR kind of things, people doing the right thing, doing the wrong thing, pays, and started to introduce things like how can we help our team win, training, courses, development. And then I really, that's the bit of I started to really love, right? So I moved more into that. And then I become like a BDM. I was focused on growing the business. So I'd go out and meet builders and new clients and mining clients. And I started to develop my skill set to grow the business and I would feed all the work. And at this point, I had no daily operational income producing time. I wasn't out on the tools at all. I was 40, 50, 60 hours a week in the office. So that was the big change for me. It became from being a supervisor to being a manager. It shifted from me coordinating and firefighting, solving problems, to then delegating responsibility and focusing further ahead. And then as we got bigger again, and I had 2 managers underneath me, actually it ended up being 4 because we had multiple branches. I become financial management, big picture priorities, strategic growth, large tenders and big and I got started to understand like the commercial side of contracts and things like that, because that was where I had to spend my time. So there was some really distinct skill set shifts. But I think the one theme, the further up I went, the more it became about people.
Yeah.
You know, at a supervisor level with 6 or 8 people, it was about logistics and coordination and supporting your team to win and wanting them to help. And then at 60 people, it was about how do I make sure that everyone has what they need to be successful, making sure that people are following our values, having a culture that thrives. These are the things. And someone said to me, how do you do that? I was like, it's the little things. It's having a coffee with your team in the morning. It's positively reinforcing when the right things are happening. And that's your job at that level, right? So that was the thing that was a real distinct change for me, that it become all about people and culture the further up you went.
Mick, a mistake that I often see, tell me if you've seen this the same, is that we decide, okay, I'm going to do some delegating and then I'm going to allow my team to step up, but we don't support them in the step up. So we kind of give them this list of tasks and then we walk away, and 9 times out of 10 they fail. They don't achieve what we want them to achieve. And so the natural response, of course, for particularly trade business owners is we get in and we micromanage.
Yeah.
And then we become really frustrated, like you were explaining earlier, overwhelmed, frustrated, overworked, exhausted. Our priorities aren't right. Our family life is suffering. How do we measure them? So thinking about a team member, we've handed over a bunch of responsibilities. Maybe I'll ask this a different way. What are the keys to success when handing over a part of your business or delegating the responsibility for part of your business within your team?
So there's 2 really key things, and there's, what you're describing is you become a task manager and you dive into the micromanagement because you're just trying to make sure all the tasks are happening and you end up doing all the thinking for them. And that's the hard bit, right? Like the tasks are easy, but you do all of the thinking for your team. So what I often talk about and what I teach, and probably something I learned midway through, was like, we've got instead of, giving a task and then doing all the checking up, we're like, okay, well, what's the outcome we want? What are we looking for here as an outcome? Like, this is your area of responsibility. And if we think about, I'm going to allocate you now looking after all the residential real estate work, that's your area of responsibility. What the outcome is that we've got happy real estate agents, everyone's schedule is full, and we're making X amount of net profit, gross profit on jobs, or whatever measurement tool you want to use.
Mhm.
And we're getting 5-star reviews, or however you measure your client happiness. That's the outcome. If you're doing a great job, that is what I'll see. We'll see that through the numbers, through reviews. So we've got a measurement tool. So depending on what area, and then you just coach them.
Mm.
You're like, hey, how'd you go with that? Oh, we didn't fall short. Okay. And I think the secret is using questions and not telling. Instead of saying, oh, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you say, okay, what's the plan to hit the mark for next month?
Yep.
And then shut up and listen. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see in this process is people don't listen.
Mm.
They talk at their team and tell them what to do rather than ask a question and listen, because what we often think they need to know is not always what they need to know.
Yeah.
Um, and when we tell them all the time, it disengages the part of their brain that does the thinking. So they just follow orders, and it disempowers their team, right? Whereas if I just say, hey, what's the plan next month? Okay, awesome. Well, I'll check in with you halfway through the month and see if you're on track. And then I go and check in on them. They feel really excited and empowered to make these changes and get the result. And when they get the result, they feel even better. But it's their thing. And that's the thing that people don't quite understand with empowering their team. It's a bit of a buzzword. I want to empower my people. But when they realize it actually means giving them the power
Yep.
to make a decision and do the thing, that's the bit that often makes leaders or business owners feel uncomfortable.
Mm.
Oh, you need to go and deal with that customer and make a decision to keep them happy. You know what the outcome is. How are you going to handle it?
Yeah.
Oh, they've got to let them do it. And every time I let them do it, I was always surprised at the result in a positive way. Rarely, occasionally things went wrong, but we were there to pick up the pieces and help them rebuild. Like, all right, well, what do you need from me for us to get this back on track? Instead of taking over and doing it for them, it was about how do we work together to rebuild that or solve the problem together.
Mm.
And that did happen occasionally, but far less than I expected.
So
So I
it
think, yeah,
kind of fundamentally starts at school when we're all taught the same way to do the task. And then so we're almost disengaging our brain. We just become parrot fashion back
yeah,
for everything that we're being taught in inverted commas. And then I see the same thing happen in our apprenticeships. We're taught how to do it the way our bosses did it when they were taught. So we're still using old technology. It's not often that we advance quickly in the trades because we all do things the way we were taught. And so then we get to this point where we want to promote someone on our team into a leadership role, and they don't know what the freak to do because they've disengaged their brain and they no longer think for themselves. They come to you every single time there's a question, which you answer every time, rather than sending them back to research and figure it out. And don't come to me with a question, come to me with two possibilities and let's explore. There are really simple things that you can do early on in your journey that engage the brain again so that your team member can step into the role that you've assigned to them and not let you down. I think
yeah.
we have to take responsibility for how we downskill our team and then ask them to be responsible for a part of the business.
And you're 100% right there. I think it's critically important that we understand that when we give them the answers all the time, we actually make it's not helping them. It's it's holding them back. And that doesn't mean there's times where sometimes people don't know, right? So we're like, oh, okay, let me teach you. Let me show you how to do this task or this skill, right? And that's cool. But we default to give the answer. And the thing that not many people speak about is at the start, it makes you feel really good when everyone's ringing you for the answer and you're the smartest guy in the room. Until you've got 20 people ringing you for the answer and you're like, you're getting 200 phone calls a day and you can't function because so much on your plate, right? Then it's like, why can't they think for themselves? And the thing that shifted for me was when I looked in the mirror and realized they don't think for themselves because I don't let them.
It is a mind-blowing shift. It is a big shift. It's a shift that needs to happen. It's funny, when I have these conversations, Mick, with clients, it's like, I refer back to what they do with their children because inherently we're very good at leading our children and helping and coaching them and helping them become great humans. We're not necessarily, and yeah, of course we do it at times because it's easier, but we don't necessarily rush in and solve every problem for them. We've become very good at learning to stand back and let them ride without the training wheels. And yes, they're going to fall off and wobble and carry on, and that's okay. That's how they learn. But we don't repeat the same behavior with our teams. And so my conversations are so often about, well, what would you do if it was one of your kids? And it just re-engages their own thinking as a business owner. Oh, well, I've got to do this. And you said it before, you're coaching your team. The more I talk to you and listen to you, I'm thinking, this is leadership is coaching. That's what it is. Leadership is coaching. It's coaching those people.
100%. A huge part of leadership is our ability to coach, right? Our number one job as a leader is to help our team win, and every team that wins as a coach.
Yes.
And that's part of your role as the leader is to be the coach, to be the person that's setting them up for success, that's helping them win, gauging them to think for themselves. If you think of it from a sport context, and I've always played sports, so I like the sports analogies, you know, you set the team up for success, you give them all the skills and tools they need, but out on the field, you're not telling them which plays to run, how to do that. They're doing that themselves, right? So how am I empowering my team when they go out in the field to think for themselves to win? If they have to call me, you know, Cameron Smith didn't stop mid-play and say, hey, Bellamy, which play do I run next? He makes the decision, right? Because he's a leader out in the field. And if we teach our people to think and become leaders out in the field, all of a sudden our life gets so easy because people think for themselves. They're starting to be proactive with stuff. And we're like, oh, this business thing's really fun.
It is fun. It is fun when you allow yourself to have the fun.
It's so good. Yeah. And I think it's such a powerful thing that, and the links between leadership and parenting, the same skills and behaviors, we're trying to instill a set of values on our children, which is what we believe, what we do. And we want to teach them, the boundaries on what's acceptable and what's not. And we want to demonstrate what good behavior is. And we want to, help them set goals and be proactive and solve problems. That's the same skill set you need as a leader.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so talking about that, values, in your experience, what creates a culture where people actually want to show up for work every day, take ownership and stay on long term?
I think the number one thing for me in my own experience, but also what I've seen, is having opportunity. If there's things that are there for them, opportunities to progress, opportunities to be a part of something, opportunities to, even things like having a positive environment and they can contribute. There's an opportunity for them to do those kinds of things and be a part of something. I think that's a really key piece. People don't want a job anymore. They want to be a part of something. So I think an opportunity to be a part of something, but also personal career opportunities, because I can say, hey, my purpose is this, and this is, we're going to change the electrical industry, or we're going to be the builder of choice. We're going to do all these amazing things. But what does that mean for them? Where's the opportunity in that for the employee? If we want to, it could be leadership, but not everybody wants to progress as a leader. So where's the opportunity for our employees in our mission and our vision and what we're trying to create? We want to build custom homes and decks for people, whatever it is, right? As a tradie, where's the opportunity for your team? What do they love about it? And that's the thing I think is really key if you want to build a team that sticks around, that has low, really high retention rates. It's about, how do I make what we're trying to do here mean something for them?
Mm, that's fantastic. Um, let's talk about conflict because it's a big part of leadership. It doesn't go away just because we step into a leadership role. How do you believe leaders can handle tough conversations with staff in a way that builds them up rather than building them down, but also builds more trust without breaking the trust?
Yeah. Yeah, I just covered, so I run a couple of live events a year for my clients, and I just had one 3 weeks ago, and the theme of that was crucial conversations, right? Because it's such a key topic, and it had come up a fair bit with my clients. And I think there's a couple of really key distinctions about why we don't.
Mhm.
And there's two reasons people don't. One, they don't know how. I've never really done it. Or the other one is fear. They're worried about what they might say. Maybe they might leave. What if they do this? Or there's a fear-based element to it. So depending on which one of those is at play depends on what we need to do. But from a know-how perspective, I think there's a really simple framework for big picture conflict. So like something that's a really big issue. I think knowing the outcome. I've got to go and talk to this person about poor quality work, and they've let us down a number of times, and it's really not representing my name, and maybe you're a bit emotional because you've been made to look bad. So what's the outcome you want by having this conversation? Most people go, oh, I don't know. But if we don't have a clear outcome, it makes it really hard. And the thing that is, once we have the outcome, share it. Hey, I want to talk to you about this. The goal for today's conversation is that we can highlight some areas where you need to develop and show you what we can do together to make that so it's not an issue anymore. It has to have a positive intent. If you go into one of these crucial conversations and it's like, oh, I just want to get rid of him, it will end badly every time. It never ends badly. And a positive way to look at that is if you've come to the conclusion that maybe this person isn't the right fit for the business, your positive intent is, I'm going to help him see that he doesn't belong here.
That's right.
That's my goal out of this conversation, is to show you, is to highlight, where we're at, and hopefully you can see whether you fit here or not.
Love it.
And so it's about having a really clear outcome and sharing that. It's staying emotionally grounded. And that doesn't mean like not having emotions. It means emotionally grounded, means like being able to regulate the fact that you're getting frustrated that the guy or the person can't see what you're trying to say. And I think the other part is curiosity. Nobody comes to work to go, I'm going to really mess up Ben's day today. I'm going to make his life miserable. But in our frustrated state, we often can think that way.
Yep.
So it's like, be curious, because they're not actually trying to ruin your day. They just can't see what you're trying to say. So when we stay curious, it keeps us out of our emotion and into that mindset where we're trying to see their perspective. There's a really, really powerful YouTube video where there's two people looking at a ball, but what they don't know is half of it's white and half it's black, and they're arguing over the color of the ball. And then they switch places and they go, oh, now I see what you see.
Perspective can be
Perspective, right? So I think one of the key things is understanding their perspective and then being able to see your perspective. So if we keep that in mind and remain curious, it makes the conversations go significantly better. I have a framework for those big conversations. It's around building trust first. You have to have trust. Quite often, uh, conversations go badly if there's no trust. So then it's once we've built the trust in the conversation, if you have great trust with your team, you can go quickly into the conversation. If you don't have close or high levels of trust, you will need to build that at the start. And that looks like building rapport and having conversations and making them feel comfortable and putting them at ease about what the outcome is. And they're like, oh, okay. Whew. Then it's like say the bits that need to be said and do the tough conversation, but you can't not say those bits. And you can use direct language with a soft and caring tone. You don't have to beat around the bush and fluff it up. You can use mate, your quality of work is just not where it needs to be.
Mhm.
There's no anger and aggression in that. It's soft and calm and relaxed. It's just a fact.
Yep.
And when we do that, it doesn't bring the emotion into it. Once we've got those bits, it's about getting a commitment to make progress and move forward. Once we've got commitment, we can hold people accountable and you'll see the results.
Yeah.
Every time. But without commitment, accountability is really hard. If they're not committed to whatever the action is out of it, good luck trying to hold people accountable. They just don't care. They're not committed to it. So I think it's a really important piece.
There's two things you just spoke about there. One of them, you will know this because I know your background, the triangle of possibility. I'm pretty sure it's an old action coach philosophy somewhere along the way. Triangle of possibility has saved some of our business owners in some of those really tough conversations. And it's also, well, I guess the way it has saved them is by demonstrating that it actually came back to the business owner because they hadn't effectively delegated or they haven't equipped their team member with the right skills to be able to perform the task. So it's been, that curiosity mindset that you're talking about, Mick, can really drive some really interesting conversations to help you get better results because it's not always the team problem. It's nearly always a system problem that creates the team problem. Occasionally we have a team problem, but they're pretty rare. More often than not, it comes down to something we haven't done as a business owner.
And you said a key point there. If we default to, like before we go, it's a people problem. Okay, show me the system, the process, the training, show me where they've been educated. Hey, this person's not doing the thing. Okay, well, show me the way you've trained them. Oh, I haven't. They should know this. Okay, so you haven't trained them. Let's train them.
Yeah.
Like if we default to that instead of blaming people, our life gets so much easier because we're on the assumption that people want to do the right thing. And I think having that inherent belief makes things a lot easier. So I think that's a key part. But once you've trained them, if they're not doing the thing, no more processes will fix that. It's just someone's not the right fit, right? But if we default to show me where we've trained them, show me the system or the process that gets a repeatable outcome. And if we can't show that, then we do that first before we deal with make it a people issue.
Mm. Then there's two other things. I think we default to taking things personally when so much of this is impersonal. And the final thing that I really want to say, just off the back of what you were saying before, Mick, is we encourage our people, and this is not my theory, it's one I stole from Alex Hormozy, who are off. It's being kind, not nice. And when it comes to having people, we have to be kind. We can't be nice. Being nice is avoiding a tough conversation or giving some critical feedback when it needs to be given. Being kind is being brave enough to go into that space because the kindness in doing so creates a better outcome, yes, for your business, but also for that team member so that they can develop. Being nice avoids that for everyone. That's fabulous, but you're not going to change. They're not going to grow and they're not going to develop, which is pretty well exactly what you've just spoken through.
Yeah. And I love that. And I follow Alex's stuff because he's incredible. And I think that one of the things around being kind, not nice, is when we are nice, we rob our team of the opportunity to be better.
Absolutely.
We are taking that away from them. And there's a really powerful sentence if you're worried about giving someone some feedback. It's, hey, I have really high expectations for you and I'm confident you can reach them. I'd like to give you some feedback that's going to set you up for that. And all of a sudden, they know you are really trying to help them and they're way more receptive to it.
It's positive.
It's positive. It's like, why are we telling me this? It's not personal. It's, I want you to succeed. I think I see your potential here and you're currently performing here.
Yeah. I think so much of it is just personal. I have conversations with business owners all day, every day, and they feel so personal about their business. And I get it. I totally understand how you arrive in that space. But when you can learn to separate the two, the business is not you. It feels like it's you, but it isn't you. It's its own entity.
Yeah.
And when you can separate that, these conversations become so much easier to have. And when you give feedback that isn't directed at the person, a big mistake I see is you statements. You did this. You're not performing well enough. Your work is shit. Rather than saying, exactly as you've just said, something like, look, I see your potential here. I think we need to work together to build a plan to get you there because currently I'm not seeing that performance. What is it that you think we can do to support you? It's almost taking the ego out of the conversation.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And I think when we take the ego out of the conversation like that, it's about them succeeding and not a personal attack. The other piece I said at the start is when people hire wrong is having the values in place. It's actually one of the most impactful performance tools that I teach is if we value quality, the conversation isn't personal anymore. It's like, hey, at X business, we really value quality. How do you think you're stacking up in terms of quality lately? Oh, probably not hitting the mark. Okay, amazing. What's the plan we're going to get there? Because we can't have you out of alignment with that because that's our second highest value, right?
Yes.
All of a sudden, it's a conversation about the values and this person being in alignment with them. And you're not even in the conversation. You're just facilitating it. And there's no personal limit.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful tool that I think, once people start to master that and have clear values, it makes those conversations really, really easy.
Mick, we've spoken about a lot of stuff today, and I am really hopeful that I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, yeah, I need more Micks to come into my community and talk to my people so they hear it from someone other than me because I tend to sound like the wife or the mum at the end of the day, and they're like, oh, yeah, I've heard it all before. It's great to have somebody else say all the same things. Now, if any of our listeners are sitting there and thinking, okay, I need help. It's time I get some help and a better focus. Where can they find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Instagram, just at Awaken Business, or www.awakenbusiness.com.au. There's a click form there. You can book a 15-minute chat with me, and if we can have a chat about what's going on in your business, if we're right to work together, great. If not, I'll point you where you need to be. There's that. I'm just about to launch a YouTube channel as well, so you'll be able to see me on YouTube, which will be pretty awesome. There's 4 ways to get a hold of me.
I'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes. So if you're sitting there listening on site and thinking, I need to reach out to Mick, you can just scroll down. You'll find all the links that you need. Mick, thank you so much for joining me today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to seeing the impact it has with your listeners.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Tradies in Business podcast with Nicole Cox. Find out more about today's guest, tools for your trade business, and other cool stuff at tradiesinbusiness.com.au.